Awesome. All right, so I'll call this meeting to order then at 3:02. And before we get started, I would just like to respectfully acknowledge that the SFSS is located on the traditional unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Coquitlam, and Katzie nations. Unceded means that these territories have never been handed over, sold, or given up by these nations, and that we're currently situated on occupied territories. And also just taking a moment to recognize that in the midst of this pandemic, we're all working from different locations and just recognizing the different lands that we're all privileged to work on right now. I'll start with roll call of attendance. Yeah, so I'll just start with myself. Hi, everyone. My name is Gabe. I'm the VP University Relations and chair of this committee. My pronouns are he, him, his, and my access needs are met. Well, I'll pass it over to the president.
Hi, everyone. My name is Asab. My pronouns are she and her, and all my access needs have been met.
Thank you, Asab. I'll pass it over to the VP Finance.
Hi, my name's Corbett. He, him, his pronouns, and my access needs are met.
Thank you, Corbett. VP Student Services.
Hi, it's Matt. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm gonna have to turn off my camera because my back is sore from sitting here. But other than that, I'm good.
Thanks, Matt. At-large representative.
Hi, my name is Bilqis, she, her, hers. My access needs are met.
Thank you. Faculty of Science rep.
Hi, my name is Wei Chen, pronouns he, him, his. My access needs are met, but I have to leave at 4:30.
Sounds good. I don't expect that we'll go that late, I don't think, but thanks for letting me know. We'll move on to society staff now. Shanika, do you know if Sarah plans to come today?
I haven't heard from her, but I can send her a message.
Sure, maybe she's just yet to join.
Yeah.
So we'll keep an eye on that. Executive assistant, if you'd like to go ahead.
Hi, I'm Shanika, pronouns she or her, and I'm having a mild headache today.
Cool. Again, I hope that goes away soon and that you're feeling good.
Thank you.
And our administrative assistant has emailed us saying that her internet's a bit wonky, so she might be joining us a little later. But in the meantime, we'll make sure that the recording is in Kristen's hands. So we'll move on then to the adoption of the agenda. So the motion reads, be it resolved to adopt the agenda as presented. So do I have a mover for that motion?
Corbett moves.
Corbett moves, thank you. Is there a seconder for the motion?
Matt.
Matt, thank you. Does anyone have any amendments to the agenda? Any discussion on the agenda? Looks good to me. All right. So seeing none, I'll move to a vote then. So seeking unanimous consent on the motion. All those in favor? And I'm seeing, okay. All right. So seeing no opposition then. Corbett, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was in Board of Governors meeting this morning for 4 hours, and they do show of hands physically, and so that just messed me up.
That's fair. You know what? It almost seems unnatural to me when we're doing online video meetings not to raise my hand. It's just like an instinct at this point. But you know, and either works too. When we're moving in second, it seems we all have our camera on. So if you just want to raise your hand, that works too. Anyway, that motion, seeing no opposition, that motion carries unanimously. So we'll move on to item number 5, which is the matters arising from the minutes. So be it resolved to receive and file the following meeting minutes from the governance committee meetings on June 4th and June 11th. Is there a mover for that motion?
Matt.
Matt, thank you. Is there a seconder?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion on the minutes? All right, so seeing none, we'll move to a vote then. Seeking unanimous consent. All those in favor? All right, seeing no opposition, that motion will also carry unanimously. And I see that Sarah's just joined us too. Do you just want to pronouns and access needs before we get started? If her internet. All right. That's that's all right. It's nice to see her with us though. Okay, so we'll move on then. We'll move to our first discussion item, which is 6.1, bylaw consultation debrief. So I wanted to take a moment on the agenda today to talk about our last bylaw consultation and how it went and what our thoughts were, and maybe discuss next steps and how we kind of see this process going forward. And I guess I'll start with my initial thoughts. When it comes to the overall bylaw review process, from the beginning I was a bit concerned for the process. From the beginning, I had concerns over, I wasn't necessarily sure a lot of the advice we were receiving was necessarily reliable or really relating to student societies and not even student societies, but just in general the BC Societies Act. I always had an inkling that a lot of this was coming. A lot of the information we were receiving was coming from knowledge of Societies Acts from other provinces, and I think our consultant was based out of Ontario in the past. That's okay, Kristen. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully your internet is all good. I've recorded the meeting up until this point, so we're all good there. So yeah, I just think that right now there is some good stuff that we can take out of the draft bylaws in its current state. There are a lot of things I'm concerned about though, and a lot of a lot of things that weren't included in the draft bylaws that very clearly were mandated by the students in our bylaw survey. So and also it just comes down to some things just, yeah, that's it for me personally. I want to get everyone else's opinions on and just do a quick debrief of that bylaw consultation, if there are any thoughts. I know I kind of share the same thoughts as many committee members here.
I can jump in. Also, just a heads up, I should have said there's an accessibility part, but because I've had a number of really long meetings today, I'm a little burnt out. So I may be a little bit less focused than normal. So please bear with me. So yeah, like I had similar concerns with Gabe, because there was a lot of things when I first saw the drafts, or the first round of feedback, I think before I came on the board, and a lot of some of the comments and suggestions seemed to be really counter to how I understood, or even some of the advice and guides I had read about the Societies Act. So what I would like to see is we can find one or two people that have a lot of experience with student societies, plus the BC Societies Act, maybe been involved with advocating. Because I remember talking to a person who said that the ABCS was the ones that really initially pushed for the Societies Act to be updated in 2015 or 2014. So it'd be good to reach out to them and get some of that history, and get some of the perspective maybe from other student sides that have transitioned over already. If we already haven't done this, like, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd like to get their perspective, because I've looked at a number of different student size bylaws that have transitioned, and they are like, Capilano Student Union has whole layers of accountability and powers associated with, like, if like one example I can think of the top of my head was, if a policy or a bylaw, if something's been changed through a referendum, sorry, not referendum, sorry, through a general meeting, then only a general meeting can change that bylaw or that policy change in the future. And I think something similar for referendum language and stuff. And I think the rationale being, in that, at least in that student society, the membership is the highest authority, and so the board can't supersede what the membership has or the assembly has said at an assembly, a general assembly. I'd like to explore that, if that's valid or not. I do kind of understand where Deborah was coming from our bylaws and how like electronic meetings and referendum and stuff, but so there, if there is some weird thing where the really referendums are not or can only be valid for changing fees, then that's a pretty big thing that a lot of student societies need to know about. And so frankly, I want to talk to them, because I feel that since a lot of them have already probably gone through this, probably gone through similar arguments or viewpoints or gotten feedback, maybe they have people they recommend to help us guide us through this or this process. Because if we do want to get some stuff in for the fall, we have to jump on it right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Corbett. I'll respond to a few of those points, but I think.
Sorry, my apologies. And also the other thing too is maybe we should be asking them if they plan to do the same thing with bylaws, or if they think because of COVID and the changes and stuff with on virtual AGMs that maybe they will recommend that we don't try to get these bylaws passed due to just logistics issues or something. That'd be good feedback for us to hear as well, just in case.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Corbett. Balkis, do you want to go next?
Do you have a direct response first?
Nothing that can wait.
Okay, sure. I was just going to say, I think one of the first steps, besides actually looking at the bylaw survey results ourselves, like yourself, if you haven't already had the chance, is we need a new consultant. I know we already talked about this as a board amongst ourselves, but just like, let's get the process going for that. Just really making sure we are consulting with somebody who is familiar with BC Societies Act as well as student societies in general, and like really help us, I guess, implement what our vision is, as well as, like the bylaw survey results. So yeah, I really agree with you, Corbett, when you say let's reach out to other student unions, see what they've been up to, see if they have recommendations for people to potentially be consulting with. And yeah, and that's pretty much I think like the first thing we need to do. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, thank you. And I actually agree with that very loud and clear. And I think that we're kind of running out of time. We really kind of need to be on the ball on this and quick. And I think that if it comes down to well, I think that we've kind of come to a consensus that we do need to find a new consultant and get this going. And I think that we should be on that very soon. And I know Corbett's left the room, but I'll just respond to a few of his points. That there was a lot of big themes in the bylaw survey that were revealed, I think. I should have brought this up earlier in this process, even before I was on the board and when I was really part of this when I was on council. But overall, the survey I found to be a little bit, the questions to not necessarily be laid out in the best way, or they were quite biased in terms of what the board's duties should be and where accountability should lie. And I think it was very, our consultant had a very clear-cut idea of there's the board and then there's the membership, and there wasn't really anything in between. And I think that that's something we need to seriously look into. And I think when it comes to, again, what Corbett mentioned in terms of levels of authority, the membership, referenda, general meetings, the board, we really need to take a serious look at that. And that also involves rethinking bodies like council as well. I know this is a huge topic that we've discussed, and something that I think is a big discussion we need to have now, whether or not we're trying to go for a kind of like bicameral system, kind of similar to UBC AMS, or others, even our grad student society that has their council as their board of directors and a subordinate executive committee or board type body within the council. So I think those are discussions we need to have as well. And when it comes to referenda, and that issue that was flagged by our consultant at our previous consultations, I don't want to say I'm concerned, but I'm wary of that being flagged, because if this were really a big issue, I think that all the other student societies in BC would have, like, the alarm bells would be ringing loud by this point. I think that's something as serious as when it comes to our relationship with the university, referenda is the conduit for us to receive our student fees and collect those and change how much we collect. And that whole process of establishing student fees is spelled out in the Universities Act. And even though the highest governing legislation related to us is the Societies Act, I don't think that replacing the method of referenda voting or indirect voting, or however, whatever we're calling it, taking out that language of referenda is wise. And I think that could actually get us in some trouble with the university. And I don't think that's necessarily smart on our end. And I think that it's totally a great idea to reach out to other student societies and figure out if this is an issue that has been flagged to them as well, and see, if this is actually an issue. I know that Corbett and I were talking about this shortly after our last bylaw consultation, but there are many parts of the Societies Act, and of course, we are not legal experts ourselves, but there are many parts of the Societies Act, lines and clauses that almost pretty clearly, like in plain English, signify that referenda can be used, that it's not contradicting the act, that it's a form of indirect voting or delegate voting, or I don't remember exactly how it's what the clause is in the Societies Act. I think that we should even look at that more, but there's a lot to think about. And so in terms of next steps, we really need to, I think, even before we even start looking at any bylaws or even start thinking about a new consultant, we need to actually have a sit down and talk about what's a general direction we would like to head in with these bylaws, and how do we want to go about it? Are we going to try and do a massive omnibus type change where it's all or nothing? Do we want to try and take out chunks of the bylaws and do it bit by bit, which might be smarter in my opinion, and figure out which parts of the bylaws impact each other, so that if we decide to do it bit by bit, we know that, okay, if we can't get this part of our bylaws approved at an AGM, will it affect this part, or will it affect this part? And how will we work around if certain parts are getting approved but others aren't? And then again, it just comes down to, once we have those decisions made, we really need to start campaigning on this and putting out to our students, listen, these are the changes we're proposing, and this is why we're doing it. And again, it all comes down to, we want to be able to serve our membership better, and to be able to serve our membership better, we need to make these changes. So those are some big steps that we need to take into consideration when we're going forward. I just want to ask if there's any questions or comments or thoughts when it comes to anything that I just mentioned. Shanika?
So I agree with what you said, but if we're gonna get a new consultant, I suggest that, and that you can accept or not take my suggestion, the board look at the bylaw, take out what you think is good, take out chunks of it, as you said, and then rather than having the consultant starting from scratch, because given the limited time that we have, we need to just look at what worked for us and then what we think won't work, and let this consultant start from there.
Thank you. Asab?
Yeah, my question, or I guess reply, is to Shanika about the potential of having a new consultant. For the consultant that we currently have, is there anything that you know of that's like barring us from just going, like, does she have like a contract or any like formal agreement for like a duration of time or any particular amount? Or are we able to just kind of email her and say thank you and then move on?
She came before I arrived, but I think she has a contract. So I'm gonna try and find that contract, and then I can maybe send it to you, and we can look at it together.
Perfect.
Yeah, and Sarah commented here that she believes it might be in the best interest to wait until the spring to put bylaw changes to the membership. At this point, there's less than 3 months to propose new changes to the bylaws and receive feedback from membership and put out the notice. Yeah, also go ahead.
Yeah, no, I recognize the concern around the timeline. I think what might be a good idea is for us to get started, I guess, with or I guess continue what we've been doing in terms of like what Shanika just said, going through the bylaws right now, looking at the stuff we want to keep, making edits to what was proposed by our bylaw consultant. And of course, in the case that we find that we aren't able to do a sufficient consultation, then we can actually make a plan to put them forward for the spring. But I think if we are confident, and I can ask Gabe as the chair, you can probably ask the rest of the committee. If we're confident that we may be able to have something sorted out for the fall, I think we should try our best for it, and then see how things go from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that, like, in my personal opinion, and I'd love to hear this, I think that we have a general idea of where we want to go, I think, and we should have a sit down, maybe outside of this committee, offline, and try to figure out what do we want to see, how much do we want to do, and what is our capacity right now. I think that if we really dedicate ourselves to it, that we could get something to our membership for the fall. That's not saying that I necessarily think that's my stance right now. I think that it's definitely possible. But again, as I just said, that totally depends on how much we want to get done and how big these changes are going to be. And that's also dependent on many factors, like what changes are we actually making to the bylaws? Is it a change to the composition of the board? Is it a change to our elections? Is it a change to council's role, the board's role? And, you know, if it does come down to things like elections and composition of the board, would doing it in the spring be too soon to our next election in order to, you know, actually conduct these changes effectively in time for the next board term? just some thoughts to put out there. And I honestly don't have an opinion on it quite yet. I want to hear the committee's thoughts on that, and we can have a discussion going forward. And just give everyone a few seconds if they have any thoughts that pop into their heads. Sure, Corbett.
So yeah, I think that we can. Yeah, I can do something with this. I can, like, there's certain things in the bylaws I think are more important or more core to the organization. You can kind of tie that in with the model bylaws that the BC government sends out. And I can map that out to see what I think would be important to if we wanted to change for the fall versus stuff that could be done for spring. If we want to say do this in 2 phases or 3 phases, maybe even, I can do an initial look through and provide that to the committee for next week as an action item.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's value in potentially doing that. I think that potentially breaking this up in 2 might be beneficial, kind of getting some core stuff done in the fall. You know, one of the main points or reasons we've started this in the first place is because there are a lot of problems in our bylaws in terms of consistency with the Societies Act and contradictions within the bylaws itself. Getting those ironed out in the fall would probably be beneficial. And then maybe doing a type of semi-annual general meeting type thing in the spring to kind of get some more bigger, maybe less mandatory changes, but maybe changes that are things that would set the society in a direction that we see best for the organization. So is that kind of, if I were to summarize what you were saying, Corbett, is that kind of what you were?
Yeah. Yeah, basically just that's it. Because like the core things in my head right now are membership definition, board, composition powers, elections, and then dissolution, because I fully agree with the consultant that was a good thing to add. And 1 or 2 other things I just can't think of top of my head as like the core of the society, of any society, nonprofit or student society or regular nonprofit. So I can target those out and then see if they're connected to other things, like map it a bit. If there's other, like, because for instance, when you talk about board composition, that naturally flows into the next bylaw that talks about board powers and responsibilities and etc. And I can also then look at how what the consultant said related to, because there was definitely areas I liked where she simplified some language, reduced some duplication, and say, okay, hey, you know, XYZ sections are actually pretty solid, and so that would make our life a lot easier, and then do that. And then that would still be a fairly high level look. We can definitely probably work with Sarah to do a better analysis on it, or detailed analysis. But I'm happy to do that first step just to get the ball rolling. Because personally, I like to visualize and break things down in a system, because that's what bylaws are, that's what policies are. So I'd like to get that started, and I'm not going to say I can whip up really quick, but I can definitely get something for the committee next week, and then we can go from there.
Sure, that seems like a logical first step to me. Yeah, is there any thoughts on that? Any other thoughts on that? Yeah, if I could get some thumbs up maybe if you're feeling good about that, just to gauge what you guys are thinking. All right. Okay, thanks, Matt. So yeah, I think just trying to get my thoughts straight here. The second part of the bylaw review that I kind of wanted to draw attention to is I know that myself and many committee members here have indicated interest in doing a review of our elections policies as well. And that really goes hand in hand. It could, I should say, go hand in hand with our bylaw review, because a lot of our guidelines around elections stem from our bylaws. But where the bylaws have gaps, our elections and referenda policy come in to fill those gaps and are just as key to our elections as anything in our bylaws. So if we are planning on going forward with the elections and referenda policy review, it might be worth backing that or doing it concurrently with our bylaw review. And I don't know if that's too much to take on. I certainly think that they complement each other very well, but this would be a great opportunity to decide what parts of our elections should be more solidified and codified in our bylaws, and what should be left for the board as an entity, this board or future boards, what should be left to remain in policy that can be changed by any board. So that is something else we should be considering too. And if there's any thoughts on that, I would love to hear them. But just food for thought again. Yeah, and I guess we don't necessarily need to come to a consensus on that right now. I think that we can kind of have a broader discussion on that maybe next week when Corbett brings forward kind of a high level review of the bylaws and what core things we should be changing. But just again, something to think about and going forward. So is there, before we move on, are there any overarching concerns or questions regarding the overall bylaw review process that maybe we've missed? All right, sounds good. I'm sorry if I'm leaving long pauses. I just like to give a moment for everyone to collect their thoughts. And it might seem long, but it's good I find the silence to kind of just think about anything that I've missed. So we'll move on from that then, I think, if there's no more discussion. And we'll move into 6.2, which is continuation of governance restructuring. And of course, a review of what's happened so far. So I think we're all aware at this point that, the board mandated the governance committee to do a governance review. And up to this point, we have done research and we have recommended a new governance model to the board. And this is backed up, of course, alongside our the executive committee's administrative restructuring. And we had 30 days for the governance committee to do a wholesale review of our policies, and that did happen. The governance committee reviewed our board policies and our administrative policies, and those were passed by the board. And so now, the governance restructuring is not really done yet. As I've kept saying, I think that this is going to be a process that's going to take probably a good few more months, and to really iron out what needs to be included in those policies, and ironing out a few things here and there. And this is kind of just like a second round review of what we currently have, and we are looking to do that, I think, at this committee, but also we need to Sorry, I've lost my train of thought here, but I'll let Austin go and hopefully I remember what I was going to say.
Yeah, I was going to say it might be helpful to even develop a schedule for policy review and then figure out what things are like really high priority that we need to change. I know in conversation that the three of us had with some of the folks from CUPE, there were some policies that have already been flagged for review. So I think what might be nice as well for like the operational policies in particular to reach out find out what is like what their, I guess, priority is in terms of what needs to be reviewed right now, and then we can go through them as needed, essentially.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? It seems that you channeled both what I was going to say and what Corbett said, because that was I was going to say. I was going to bring up that in a meeting we had with CUPE, they've expressed interest in themselves reviewing the policies and seeing, especially in our ops policy or administrative policies as they're called now, what needs to be looked at and needs attention. So I think that is, when it comes to the governance restructuring, that is something that we need to continue to look at and work with CUPE and with the union. Yeah, there are a few things here and there that just small things that can be changed in the policies, and I've noticed them too, and they can be easily changed once we do a second batch that can go to the board. And yeah, I just took some notes here and some other things too. Like I think that the privacy policies were flagged as something that we actually haven't gone through yet. So those will be done, of course, in consultation alongside, like Sarah and the union, and hopefully, even some of our staff too, trying to understand how these are impacting them and what we can do to make that easier. And I know, Sarah, I just before you go, Austin, I just wanted to ask Sarah. I did. I think I had a chance to send you the Word versions of the policies, and had asked if you had some time to look over those policies. And I know there was a few things that you brought up or flagged maybe in those policies, and I think that you might have a chance to go through those, and maybe we can bring those to the committee sometime going forward. Oh, I forgot her mic's not working. My apologies. But yeah, awesome. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask folks if there's like a way that we can try to like determine, not necessarily in this meeting right now, but like what policies we think are like really necessary to review. We can have a discussion in Discord or something. And then I think we should maybe have like a doc, loop in Sarah, and have the governance committee go through it together with Sarah over the course of the next while, if that's possible. And then we can like have some changes ready to talk about at governance, but then also go through it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Sorry, I was low-key typing and trying to listen to you at the same time. So, but I think you were saying exactly what I was. Okay, sounds good. So I think that this is still cool. So this process is still very much ongoing, and I think that the committee will continue to look at them and figure out what we need to iron out, and Sarah alongside other staff can look at those, and sometime in the near future, in a month or two, we can do kind of a second round of policies to bring to the board. And so that's really all I have in terms of some action items there in terms of continuation of the governance restructuring. Does any other member of the committee just want to, any thoughts or maybe something that I've missed? Balkis?
So far for action items, we have go over policies. SIB's going to be in touch with QP about just in touch with QP. What else are we missing or has been mentioned?
There was
In
an
terms
action
of
item for the consultant that Corbett stated.
Cool.
Yeah, so just to review those, for the bylaw consultation or review, Corbett's going to look over the bylaws and kind of give like a high level summary next week or whenever our next governance meeting is. And I'll talk about that in a minute, actually, when our next meeting is going to be. For the policies, the committee itself will look over it, over them. Sarah's also looking them over as well. And Asib and myself and Corbett will probably be in contact with QP to make sure that all that is good there. Awesome. Any last thoughts? All right, this meeting was a lot shorter than I thought it was going to be. Yeah, so it doesn't look like there's any more discussion. So we can move on then, and we'll go to adjournment then if there's nothing else. I'll just ask before we do move to adjournment. I have sent out a when to meet to the governance committee because this time the committee has expressed its intent and desire to meet on a weekly basis. And because of that, the 3 to 5 time slot doesn't really work because at the same time on alternating weeks, one of I don't remember exactly which committee, but one of Jennifer's committees that she chairs conflicts with this one as well, and it's not fair to our staff to have this meeting recorded and have to go back and take minutes on it. So if we can, I would ask all the committee members to fill that out when possible. I think I emailed it out a while ago, but so we can quickly figure out a new time to meet on a weekly basis. And if we don't have one single time that works for a weekly time, it might have to kind of be alternating where one week we meet at a specific time, say 3 to 5, and then the next week we meet at a different time. Because I know that a lot of us have kind of bi-weekly schedules where our meetings work on a bi-weekly scheduling scheme. All right, so we'll move on to adjournment then. So be it resolved to adjourn the meeting at 3:45 p.m. Is there a mover for that motion?
Corbett moves.
Thanks, Corbett. Is there a seconder for the motion?
Bilkis.
Bilkis, thank you. No. So I'll seeking unanimous consent on the motion then. All those in favor? All right. And seeing no opposition to the motion, that motion will carry unanimously. So nice and short meeting, everyone, and we have some action items out of that. And I will let you know when the next meeting is, and I'll call agenda items for that. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Shanika, feel better soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, hope you feel better.
All right, let me just stop the